Hello everyone, Shroomraver here, and welcome back to Let's Make a Mini. This is the series where I'll be taking some of our favourite characters from the world of TV, movies, video games, comic books, all that good stuff, and making them as TTRPG D&D minifigures right here on Hero Forge. Yes, indeed. Now, today is going to be probably my most ambitious build so far, even more ambitious than the Midna build from ages ago. That is because today we are going to be making Ghost Rider from the Ghost Rider series. Now, there's one main reason why this is such an ambitious one, and that is because of the head. Of course, Ghost Rider, as you know, has a flaming skull as his head. And that is not something that we can really do on Hero Forge. There is no sort of elemental effect on body parts. But we're going to try and find loopholes in what we can do with body parts to make that possible. It's a very ambitious build. I'm excited to do it. So without further ado, let's make a mini. So, starting things off, we're actually going to scroll all the way down here towards the bottom because we're going to be using the skeleton body. And I'm just going to change the body really quick to have sort of everything else is going to be human. It's just going to be the skull as the head. One thing I'm going to do really quickly is just mess with the face. We're going to make him not smiley and we're going to make him snarly. Yes, why not? So, where do we go from here? Well, that's all we really need to do with the body for now. We're going to get onto the fun stuff immediately for the clothes, the colours, all that stuff, because that's the simple part. Excuse me. That's the very simple part. You know, there are clothing options that really work for Ghost Rider, so I'm going to go on to them right away. So, for example, the chest build, there is a very obvious piece that I want to use for this, and if we scroll down, we'll find it on the left somewhere. If I can find it, here it is. It's the biker jacket. This is very Ghost Rider, quite obviously. For the gloves, we're just going to go with the Thief's Leather Glove. For the legs, we actually have something very nice, which you don't get to use very often, which is these, the studded jeans. Ghost Rider, of course, when he gets into his ghost form, the spikes will come and the studs on his clothing and stuff. So we're going to get as close to that as possible. And for the shoes, we're going to use some shoes that we've used before. That being, if I can find them, somewhere down here. Where are they? A bit further up. There we go, the work boots. So this is a very basic thing, is Ghost Rider, and it's very obviously him, but there's a lot more we need to add here. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to colour this immediately. I know we're doing this in a very weird way, but there is method in my madness. We're going to make him the human, obviously. It's just a plain white skull. Now, what I am going to do here is break from tradition a little bit once I've just gone into the mix and given him the full white bone skin. I am actually going to give him eyes, which is going to look strange, but I do have a plan with this. So we're going to give him the eyes. They're going to come up like that. We don't want that, obviously. He has sort of flaming eyes, which we can do very easily. That's not the difficult part. As you can see, we're just going to give him these eyes, and that's fine. I think not much we need to do with that. And I'm just going to start colouring him in very quickly now. We don't want to go on theme, we just want to go on paints. This is going to be a very, very simple set of paints. We're mostly going to be working in this kind of rogue black leather. So for the most part, that is going to be what we're working with on this build. So as you can see, all of this stuff, all of the kind of the main parts of the body are going to be this black leather, which is fine. We're going to do the same with the belt, the jeans. Again, it's all very similar here. We're working a lot with the black leather. The belt I want to be the same, and the boots too. So a lot of black going on here, which is fine. Like I say, for the most part, this is really quite simplistic. It's going to get a lot more complicated later, once I get onto it. So that's that. For the shirt, I'm going to go with a kind of, probably this colour. That seems to work quite nicely. For the rest of it, I want it to be kind of metal. And this is the one I've got in mind. It's called the Welcome Stone Robot. And what this is, it's basically a kind of grey metal with red tinting on it. So as you can see, that's going to go on here. All over the place is going to be metal. He does have metal studs on a lot of his clothing options. We can't really work with that too much. But we can, as I say, put it in here. We don't want too much. Again, we just want this to be the accenting, really. So these kind of bits, I've forgotten to do the pockets, but I'll do them afterwards. The accenting on the gloves, that's going to be metal. All this stuff is going to be metal. All those studs. These little bits down the bottom. So you can see the red kind of rusting, especially on this, which is quite nice. I quite like this effect. The belt buckle obviously wants to be that. And I'm just going to go back to that black leather for the pockets. So what we can see there is that that is his clothing done. Mostly black, a bit of metal going on there as well. The plain shirt is absolutely fine. Now, we're going to do the base really quickly. This is just going to be a sort of street base, very, very simple. And I'm going quite quickly here because there's a lot still we need to do. It's looking like a regular sort of thing. This would be almost complete, but not quite. We're going to use this volcanic ember volcano, it's called, for the floor, which kind of gets that sort of fire thing going again, and the black base, all very nice. Now, Ghost Rider, of course, has his motorcycle, and we can't get a chopper, but we can get a bike. As you can see here, we have the motorcycle. So we're going to put him on there. The pose we're going to go with is this one, just turning, which is fine. And now I'm going to start colouring that in. I want to get this kind of, this is supposed to be dirt being kicked up, but I really want that to be more fire. So we'll put that in, and we'll put it on the headlight as well. And really, in terms of the bike, all we need to do is work with a few different metals. The ones I've got in mind are this, where is the gunmetal? There is a gunmetal here. Yeah, there's gunmetal. We'll use that on the tyres. We'll use some Tornado of Coals. The regular metal that we use quite a lot is going on there as well. Handlebars. All this good stuff is going to be in this black. The seat is going to be black. The tyre springs, the exhaust too. We might go back to it in a little bit. This bit should be black as well. We're going to go back to this red tinted metal for some of it as well, which is quite fun. Stuff like this will be. These kind of areas are looking to be a bit more chromatic, which is fine. We'll put that in as well. Let's get some more black on there. Very nice. As I say, this is just a very simple build. We don't want to do too much with it. And let's get a more gleaming one for this kind of area. Maybe this button, maybe some of this as well can be this kind of chrome colour. Nice. So yeah, that's the bike pretty much done. And as I say, there's not a whole huge amount we need to do with it other than that. It's very clearly Ghost Rider, but there's a couple of things we're missing. We're missing his chain weapon, another very easy one to put in. So if you go on to gear, for example, it's not a weapon that I get to use a lot, these chain weapons that you get here. And there's a few different options. There's the this kind of sickle one. The one I want is the spike chain. It's the best option, realistically. And again, very, very simple to colour. We're just going with much of the same kind of stuff we've done. will have a nice black handle, which I'm going to have to scroll around to colour in a little bit. And the rest of it will be this, this grey, nasty looking metal. And there we go. Has that been done? No, it has not. There we go. That's his chain done. Now, the final piece of the puzzle is, of course, the remainder of his skull, his flaming skull. Everything else is done. I'm not going to scroll out just yet, because this is where we're going to get a little bit tricksy. There is a way that I think we can do this. I've done a little bit of testing, not to too much of an extent. But what I'm going to try and do is use a recent addition to Hero Forge to make the skull happen. And the way we're going to do that is by using the extra arms. You may remember a little while ago I showed that there were extra arms we could use, certainly on the General Grievous build. I used that. So if you go onto body, and you can go down to here, and there are all these extra arms. What I'm going to do is pick this option. And look at that. Loads of arms. Way too many. He only has 2. So what I want to do is get rid of the middle section, which we can do by going down here. If we take the shoulder disarticulation option, those arms disappear, which is nice. So what are we going to do with these arms? Well, let me tell you. If we go onto gear here, and we go down to the remaining arms, we're going to go to the spell effects section. Now all these new ones we are actually going to scroll past all the way down to our old favourite fireball spell effect. As you can see, he's going to be holding these, and we're going to colour them in. So, going to mix, going to, not to mix, right, to paints, going to flame, and we'll take the burning orange for the bottom, and we'll take our wild flame for the top. So what are we going to do with this? Well, what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and merge these extra arms into the body itself and have it so the hands are more towards the head, so that the arm and hand is hidden, but the spell effect will go around the skull. So to do this, we're going to have to go into the advanced pose section. As you can see, we've got all these different options here. And what we're going to be focusing on are these. Now this is not easy to do, but as you can see, if you move these arms enough, they will just merge through the body. The fact that he's on a bike is actually going to help us here, because it's going to help hide some of the bits that we can't. And a lot of this is very much trial and error. We're going to be moving around quite a lot. As you can see, we bend through and his arm disappears into his body, which is exactly what we want. We want to twist it. We want to bop it, twist it, and do it. And as you can see, it's all the way up there. But we don't want it peeking through the body. So if I just move down, I'll be able to just about see, I think, where it is. Where are we? We're there. And we're in. So now if we go to the hand, we can get a better idea of where it's moving. So to here maybe, and we'll tilt it around. And then if we click on the actual spell effect itself, we can start moving that. And look at this. Already it's more in the position that we want it to be in. Like I say, there's a lot of trial and error with this. You can see the arm is there and we don't want that. So we're going to try and see what we can do about that. If we move it to here, see what kind of tilt we can get going on. That's a little bit too much. We can get the elbow going in further, and we bend it back. And then all of a sudden, it's around his head. Isn't that clever? So now it's on his back and we're actually getting quite close. If we start moving the wrist again, we'll be able to get very close indeed. And look at this. Already, it's looking a bit Ghost Rider-y. Tilt it around, move it around. Just playing with it enough so that it starts to take shape. So if we start tilting it even more, bend it, not quite there. Now this isn't going to be perfect, of course, but that is not looking too bad at all. We've got that little bit of hand there that we don't want, so we'll try and cover that up as best we can. We go into the mix, it's on his shirt, so if we take that shirt colouring and just fill that in, and it's nice and disguised. And there we have some flame, and we're going to try and do the same with the other arm, just to get it on the other side as much as possible. So we're going to advanced again. Here we are, other arm. So, what we can do here is we actually get, because he's holding the chain, his clavicle is freed up to play with if we need to, which gives us even more freedom, which is grand. We're going to tilt that in, we're going to twist it around. We're going to be brutal with it to start, and then we'll just start messing with it. As you can see, it's peeking out the back, which we don't want. So if we go with the tilt, that's not what we want. We go with the bend. That is much better. Now, how far is it peeking through the front? Not much at all, which is lovely. And now we play with the wrist, moving that around as much as possible. Like I say, there's a lot of trial and error involved with this. It's about just messing around with the extremes and just going side to side, and gradually working to get that flame into position, and then really messing with it a little bit more. So it's a difficult one to pull off. I'm going to play with the elbow and see if we can do that, and as you can see, it's now sort of around his back. So we're getting to the right kind of position. The tilt, again, we really need to keep that tilt at the maximum so it doesn't peek through his chest. Unfortunately, there's not a whole huge amount we can do about it if it does. That's kind of where we need to be. And then we play with the wrist again. Peeking through his back a little bit, but we'll be able to fix that. And if we go with the tilt all the way around, very difficult indeed. Now it's coming through the back a little bit more. So now we'll go over to the flame itself and see if that's going to help us. It is a little bit, especially if we do this. Now it's coming through the front. The interesting thing about this is, depending on how you've tilted it and how you've rotated it, the bend will go in different directions. So there's a lot, again, of trial and error going on there, and we're almost in the right area here. So now it comes down to, again, say a little bit of trial and error. We're just kind of slightly, gradually getting there as we move it back, as we twist it round, we bend it. Not right, we twist it round, we bend it again. And this is looking a little bit better. We need to try and get it as mirrored to the other side as we can, ideally. So from here, we go back to the wrist and we see if that's going to make a difference. And we bend, and we move it, and we tilt it, and we twist it, and we do all of those fun things. Unfortunately, that's not really helped us much, so I'm actually just going to undo. There is a Control Z function, which is lovely. And we'll get it back to around here. And basically it's just a case of trying again and trying again and trying again. So let's try the elbow again this time. As you can see, it's going like that. We'll try a bit more of a bend on it. We'll try a little bit more of a twist on it maybe. Now it's in a different position. We go back to the wrist. Again, it's not quite right. We go back to the flame itself. And the hand's poking through. So again, we need to Control Z all the way back out again. It's a very difficult one to get right, this one. So let's go back as far as we can. Which isn't going to be all the way. Unfortunately, we can't go all the way back. But this is kind of the best positioning we had at the time. Now we're working with this side, so we might be able to play with the clavicle. And as you can see, that is actually editing it. So if we bring this around, suddenly we've got another angle to play with. So we can once again go back to here, back to the wrist, and start messing with this. Bending it in, twisting it round. There's a bit of hand there that we don't want. Now we go back to this, and we're looking like if we bend it upwards, tilt it maybe, and suddenly, hello. Twist it around to the side so we're not covering too much of the face. And what do you know? We have a flaming skull. So that is looking much better. Now we can try, we could try and add in like the flaming hair. I'm going to try it. I don't think it's going to work. That said, it might do. So let's try this. Again, a lot of trial and error with this one. I'm not sure about the flaming hair. I'm going to give it a go. So if we go onto colour and we go onto the decal section, which is taking a little while to load, we go onto the hair and we can get this double tone. We go to the mix, there's our fire, here's some more, we add in this, and you see I'm not a massive fan of that. I don't like the look of that particularly. It's worth a try, so I'm just going to get rid of the hair. I think it covers up too much of the head. We want to see that skull. So let's get rid of the hair, and we're back to where we were. Now, it's possible that this is as good as we're going to get. I'd like it to be a little bit cleaner if I could. So I'm going to give it a go and try by tilting this, bending it maybe a little bit this way. Tilt it forwards, twist it round, and that, to me, is possibly as good as we're going to get. I'd like it to come around a bit more if at all possible. If we twist it in, that's quite interesting. Now that's too far out. We definitely want it on the head as much as possible. What we can do is, of course, tilt the head back a little bit. If we so wanted. Again, not much of a fan of that because it shows too much of the skull at the back. But realistically speaking, that's not a bad effort. If we tilt that round much more, we get too much baldness at the back. And if we tilt it too far forward, it takes up a little bit too much of the face. How about we do this? And see what effect that has. Now again, too much coming around the back. To be honest, this is all just kind of window dressing, because realistically what we've got here is something as good as we are going to get. We could play around with this for hours, but we're not going to. That, I think, is as good an effort as we're going to have. So that is going to be our Ghost Rider. So let's zoom out a little bit more and see what we've finally got ourselves having. So, as you can see, we've basically got Ghost Rider with his chain weapon, fire on the skull, on his bike. The bike leathers were very easy to do. That was the easy part. you know, we just added metal stuff in, you know, in lieu of being able to have spikes on the shoulders, we could go into pauldrons, but they're a little bit too obvious, if you see what I mean. It would be nice if we could have two-tone on this, but we work with what we've got. It's supposed to be mud being kicked up. They weren't really thinking about having a flaming bike. We could add sort of more fire colours to the wheels, but I don't think that would look as good. And it's nice to have our sort of gunmetal grey going on with the clean piping and some of this nice almost rusted effect, which does show a kind of heat being added as well. Obviously he's got his chain weapon. As we scroll around the back, we can see that we've covered up as much of the skull at the back as possible. It's a pretty accurate chain. It does have a spike on it in like the movies and stuff. And he's got that lean going on, and that is going to finish it up with the eyes showing the fire coming through. So that is going to wrap things up from this video. Thank you all very much for watching. I do hope that you've enjoyed. This was a ton of fun to build. I'm really liking like messing around with different effects. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. With arms going into the body but holding stuff to come out. It's a thing I'd love to experiment with, so if you've got any ideas for that kind of stuff, or indeed any characters you do want to see me make on this, put them down in the comment section below, or hit me up on Twitter. You can always catch me there. Both of my Twitter links will be in the description, along with the link to HeroForge, the site I'm using to make these minis for all your TTRPG needs, D&D minifigures. It's my go-to site. It could be yours as well. I highly recommend that you check them out. They're always adding new stuff. It's an absolutely wonderful site. I love it to bits. So you can find that in the description, plus on the bottom right of your screen you'll see it. Also in the description, finally, as I always like to mention, the inspiration behind this series, Tulok the Barbarian's building character playlist, and that is linked down there as well. But I'm going to get out of here. I've rambled on far too long, so my final thank you to you all for watching. And I guess with that, I'll see you next time. Laters.